Love story, billionaire disguised as a janitor, betrayal, emotional wedding, pregnancy, and true love. Claire and Ethan's heartbreaking romance will make you cry and believe in love again. This emotional romantic story about a rich man and an ordinary girl who loved him for his heart, not his money, became the beginning of a completely new life. He hid his real identity. She was terrified of trusting someone again. But fate kept bringing them back together under the warm summer rain. Claire never imagined she had fallen in love with a billionaire. Ethan never believed someone could truly love him for who he was. But once случайная meeting in a tiny Chicago cafe changed everything forever. Pain, betrayal, tears, separation, a wedding under the rain, and life-changing news they never expected. This emotional romance story about love, family, trust, and second chances will remind you that real love often arrives when your heart has already stopped waiting for it.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
The billionaire pretended to be a janitor. Then she whispered, "I'm pregnant." Claire worked as a waitress in a small cafe near a business center in Chicago. Every morning, she arrived at 6, tied her hair into a messy ponytail, and quietly turned on the coffee machine while the city was still waking up. Life had not been kind to her. After her mother died, she had to raise her younger brother alone. Money was always short. Her landlord threatened eviction, and her ex-boyfriend once told her, "You'll never escape poverty, Claire." One rainy morning, a new janitor from the business center walked into the cafe. Tall, quiet, wearing a dark hoodie, faded jeans, and a baseball cap. His name was Ethan. He ordered a cheap black coffee and sat by the window. Claire noticed something strange about him. His eyes looked calm, but deeply sad, like someone who had already lost too much. "Rough day?" She smiled softly. "You could say that," he replied quietly. After that, Ethan started coming every day. They talked about little things: rain, movies, childhood dreams. Ethan never bragged about himself. He seemed like an ordinary man exhausted by life. But Claire had no idea the man sitting across from her was actually Ethan Blackwood, billionaire owner of the massive tech company Vortex Group, a name constantly appearing in Forbes magazine. After being betrayed by his fiancée, Ethan disappeared from his luxurious world for a while. He wanted to know if someone could still love him, not his money. And then he met Claire. One evening, a violent storm hit the city. Claire was locking up the cafe when she noticed Ethan sitting alone in the rain, completely soaked. "Are you insane?" She laughed. "Come inside before you freeze." They sat together in the empty cafe under the warm, dim lights. Ethan watched Claire laugh, and for the first time in years, he felt alive again. "Why do you always look so sad?" she asked gently. He stayed silent for a moment. "Because people don't love me. They love what I can give them." Claire smiled softly. "Then maybe you've just met the wrong people." That night, Ethan realized he was falling in love. But the next morning, everything collapsed. A convoy of expensive black SUVs stopped outside the cafe. Employees from the business center panicked. "That's Ethan Blackwood, the owner of the company." Claire froze. She watched a man in a perfectly tailored suit step out of the car and realized it was the same janitor. "You lied to me?" Her voice trembled. "I just wanted someone to see me as a person." Claire felt her heart break. She thought she had been nothing more than a game to him. Ethan tried to explain, but she ran away. The following weeks were torture for both of them. Ethan could barely work anymore. He spent nights staring at security footage from the cafe just to watch Claire smile again. Meanwhile, Claire cried herself to sleep every night, hating the fact that she still loved him. Then one day, Claire's younger brother was rushed to the hospital. He needed an expensive emergency surgery. Claire desperately searched for money, and then Ethan appeared in the hospital hallway. "Let me help. I don't need your pity." "This isn't pity, Claire. I love you." Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time, she no longer saw a billionaire. She saw a man willing to give up everything for her. 1 year later, they returned to the same tiny cafe where it all began. Claire smiled softly. You know, I still liked that weird janitor in the hoodie more. Ethan laughed quietly. Fine, tomorrow I'll wear the hoodie again. Then she kissed him under the warm summer rain. And this time he had nothing left to hide. After the hospital, everything changed slowly. But truly, Ethan stopped trying to impress Claire with luxury restaurants or expensive gifts, because he realized something important. She had never fallen in love with his money. She had fallen in love with the quiet man in the dark hoodie drinking cheap black coffee by the cafe window. Their relationship became simple, and somehow even more beautiful because of it. Every Saturday, Ethan came to her tiny apartment without security guards or luxury cars. He carried paper grocery bags and somehow forgot something important every single time. You bought ice cream again but forgot bread? Claire laughed. I have priorities, he answered seriously. Ice cream matters more. At night, they cooked dinner together. Claire stood by the stove wearing one of Ethan's oversized t-shirts while he constantly hugged her from behind, making it impossible for her to cut vegetables properly. Ethan, I'm about to cut you instead of the tomatoes. That would be a very romantic death. Her laughter filled the kitchen, and Ethan would just stand there staring at her, still unable to believe she was real. One evening, Claire noticed he had stopped wearing expensive watches. Where's your Rolex? He shrugged lightly. I don't know. I like it more when you hold my hand instead of my watch. Tears filled her eyes instantly. For the first time in her life, she no longer felt not good enough for someone rich. She felt loved. That winter was freezing cold. On Christmas Eve, snow covered the city in white silence. Claire came home exhausted after work and noticed the apartment was dark. Ethan? Silence. Then suddenly tiny warm fairy lights turned on. The apartment smelled like cinnamon, vanilla, and pine. Ethan stood in the kitchen wearing an ugly Christmas sweater that was obviously too small for him. Oh my God, Claire laughed. You look terrible. I know. The salesman called it romantic fashion. 2 cups of hot chocolate sat on the table beside a horribly crooked gingerbread house Ethan had tried to make himself. Is that a house or a disaster? She laughed. I'm a billionaire, not an architect. They sat on the floor beside the Christmas tree wrapped in a blanket together while snow fell softly outside the window. Claire rested her head on his shoulder. You know, I used to be terrified of the future. And now I'm not scared anymore. Ethan looked at her so gently that her heart started racing. Then he pulled out a small velvet box. Claire froze. Ethan, I know I hurt you in the beginning. I know I made mistakes. But you became my home, Claire. His voice trembled with emotion. Before you, I woke up thinking about money, meetings, business. Now I wake up wondering if you kicked the blanket off in your sleep again. Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks. Ethan slowly got down on one knee. Marry me. She covered her mouth and started crying even harder. Yes, God, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms like he never wanted to let go again. Their wedding didn't look like a billionaire's wedding. Claire didn't want a palace or hundreds of reporters. She wanted something real. So they chose a small lakeside ceremony outside the city. Warm summer evening. Fairy lights hanging between the trees. White roses everywhere. Wooden benches. Soft violin music. When Claire appeared in her simple white dress, Ethan completely stopped breathing. She walked barefoot along the wooden path while the warm wind gently moved her hair. Ethan whispered quietly, "She's the most beautiful girl in the world." During the vows, Claire could barely hold back tears. You found me when I had already stopped believing anyone could truly love me. Ethan's eyes filled with tears too. And you saved me from a life that had everything except happiness. The moment they kissed, a soft warm rain suddenly began to fall. Guests laughed softly and clapped. Claire smiled through tears. I think rain follows us everywhere. Ethan pressed his forehead against hers. Then let it follow us, as long as we're together. After the wedding, Claire and Ethan's life became strangely peaceful. No glamorous parties, no reporters, no fake happiness for strangers to admire. They simply lived. And somehow, there was something incredibly beautiful about that simplicity. Every morning, Claire woke up to the smell of coffee. Ethan almost always woke up earlier to make breakfast, although make breakfast was a generous description. One morning, he burned the toast so badly the fire alarm went off. "How do you even burn bread that badly?" Claire laughed through tears. "It's artistic cooking," Ethan replied defensively. In the evenings, they walked by the lake near their home. Ethan always held her hand tightly, as if he was still afraid he would wake up and lose everything. And sometimes Claire simply looked at him and thought, how can life feel this warm after so much pain? 3 months after the wedding, Claire woke up unusually early. The house was quiet. Soft spring rain tapped against the windows. She sat alone in the bathroom holding a tiny test in trembling hands. 2 lines. Claire froze. For a second, the entire world stopped moving. She stared at herself in the mirror, confused, emotional, tears filling her eyes. Oh my God! Her heart pounded wildly. She was pregnant. They were going to become parents. At that moment, Ethan's sleepy voice came from the kitchen. "Claire, have you seen my coffee, or did I put it in the fridge again?" She laughed nervously through tears. Ethan walked into the bathroom and instantly stopped when he saw her face. What happened? Without speaking, Claire handed him the test. At first, he didn't understand. Then suddenly his expression changed completely. "Is this real?" Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks as she nodded softly. Ethan slowly sat down on the cold bathroom floor, like his legs could no longer hold him. He covered his face with his hands and laughed quietly through tears. Claire had never seen him like this before. Not as a billionaire, not as a powerful businessman, not as the owner of a massive company. Just a man who was completely, overwhelmingly happy. Carefully, Ethan placed his hand on her stomach, so gently, as if an entire universe already existed there. "Hi there, little one," he whispered softly, and Claire cried even harder. That evening they sat together on the terrace wrapped in a blanket. Rain fell softly around them, the same rain that had followed their story from the very beginning. Ethan gently played with her hair. "You know," Claire whispered quietly, "I used to think happiness meant money, a perfect life, perfect people." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "But now I realize happiness is simply finding someone who makes your heart stop being afraid." Ethan smiled softly and kissed her forehead. "My whole life I thought strength meant control, money, power, but real strength is letting someone see your soul." They sat quietly listening to the rain. Then Claire whispered, "Our baby is going to be very lucky." "Why?" "Because they'll be born into love." Ethan closed his eyes, and maybe for the first time in years, he finally felt peace. Sometimes life breaks us not to punish us, but to make room for the people who are meant to stay forever. Maybe real love was never about perfect stories, not expensive gifts, not beauty, not status. Maybe real love is finding someone after all the storms, betrayal, and pain, and finally feeling safe enough to be yourself, without fear, without pretending. And maybe that's when real life truly begins. Because in the end, people don't remember money. They don't remember success. They don't remember luxury. They remember who held their hand during the darkest moments of their lives, and who stayed.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new stories. And also write in the comments how you liked this story on a scale of 1 to 5. Watch the following video and enjoy watching.